Last time I did this, my friend shot me. A lot, Little Pip said as she tried on the red sash onto one of Red Eye's enforcers. Last time I did this, I had to eat my friend's heart, I said as I made sure my nice artificial legs were good and covered up before slipping on a pair of battered sunglasses. She looked at me for a moment and finally asked the million bottle cap question. Blackjack, how in Luna's frosty bits are you sane? I looked back at her. That was a fair question. Maybe I'm not. I do what I can to help and do what I have to win. I looked at her in surprise. Don't you? She dropped her gaze. Some things you shouldn't do. Well, yeah, I mean, you gotta make sure winning's worth it, I said as I turned towards her. And sometimes you screw up big in the process. But nothing's worse than losing because you sat on your hooves when you should have acted. I rolled my eyes and looked at the knocked out guards we'd gotten uniforms from. Would you break a promise to a friend? She asked, not meeting my eyes. Look, I'll explain to Homage about the kiss, I said with a sigh and a smile. She flushed again, then shook her head. I don't mean that. She adjusted her helmet so it covered her horn. She stomped her hooves once. Damn it, why is this so hard? I sat as she struggled. I feel like I can't trust myself. She closed her eyes. I had a problem with a drug a while back. Party time menthols. Brain enhancers. Right. Rampage chews them all the time. Those are out, I said with a confused smile. Actually, I had no idea if she ate party time or not. It never occurred to me that there might be different varieties. Exactly. They make ponies more agreeable, nicer, charismatic, she said. They're also extremely addictive. It was a big, big problem for me. Sounds useful. Got some? I asked. She closed her eyes and pressed her lips together as her magic pulled out a tin from her bags. Wow. She must have known precisely where they were. So, I'm guessing you promised to never ever take them again, no matter what. Yeah, something like that, she replied. So, right now I've got a little pony in my head telling me to take them, locked in Mortal Kombat with another pony in my head telling me to keep my promise and find another way. Right. I took a deep, contemplative drink from the bottle. Let me ask you this. Your friend you promised this to, would they want you to die to keep your promise? Little Pip sighed and looked towards Ten Pony before saying, No. And if we botch this up, are we going to die? You're helping the wrong pony cheat, she muttered. You're supposed to be helping me keep my promise. That's the right thing to do. The little unicorn sighed. I don't want it to be my addiction, making me take these. I don't want to fuck up and fail my friends again. Shows you deserve your friends, I said with a smile. I took another drink, then sighed. It's easier to give forgiveness if you don't die. So, how about this? You take them till we're out of here, hand them over when you go, and then spend all day tomorrow apologizing and blaming me for being a horrible influence on you. Velvet's going to kill me, she said as she lifted out one pink minty square decorated with little balloons and streamers. She popped it into her mouth, chewed, swallowed, and relaxed. Then she opened her eyes, and suddenly I felt like the one about to be kissed as she adopted a coy, cute little smile. Well, worry about that later. Now, how to get inside and speak to Red Eye. She looked at me and tapped her lips. That should be easy enough. The headquarters for his army consisted of 3 or 4 old canvas tents strung together and reinforced with sheet metal. If the large broadcast antenna raised in a pile of rubble behind it was any indication, it would be a good place to contact Red Eye if whoever was in charge locally wouldn't give Little Pup what she wanted. Of course, before we could even find the answer to that, we'd have to think of some way to get past the power-armored-clad griffins. I take the one on the left, you take the one on the right, I suggested. How about we just go report a disturbance in the Ten Pony subway tunnels? she replied with a cocky little smile. But they're in power armor. And I haven't beaten a griffin in power armor yet. I wondered if you could fly them as easily as Enclave Pegasi. We hid amongst the nearby supply crates, watching the comings and goings of the headquarters. You can do that later, she said, as we watched two ponies approach. The griffin said, flange, and the two ponies replied, gear. A moment later, another pair approached. Strut, they challenged. Truss, replied the ponies, and they were admitted. Little Pip seemed to be nodding to herself. Yes, that's exactly it. The small unicorn said excitedly. What? What's it? I blinked, but she immediately left cover and walked casually towards the two armored griffins, leaving me scrambling to catch up. Bolt, one challenged at our approach. Crank, Little Pip drawled in a bored tone. The pair looked at us, then each other. I don't know you, one challenged Little Pip. And why are you wearing sunglasses? The other growled at me. It's the middle of the night. I paused, then grinned. I'm just that cool. Want to bet? He reached out a claw and flicked the black plastic off my face. Then he suddenly stiffened as he saw my cyber eyes glowing like two red stars. You... what? We've got a special report to make. You're wasting our time and delaying the inevitable, glorious future. Little Pip said imperiously as she tapped her hoof with a perfect stomp for indicating irritation rather than annoyance. The pair looked visibly shaken as they carefully handed back the battered sunglasses and waved us through. You should have been an actress, I murmured. Are my eyes really that freaky? No, but Red-Eye has that kind of effect on his followers. The pair that had entered before us were trotting back out again. We followed the sounds of speakers and equipment into a small room with a desk and shelves of paper. Two tired-looking middle-aged mares sat at desks with piles of papers around them. The larger room with communications office, opened off, was filled with maps of Manhattan and other cities around the wasteland. A bunch of symbols had been drawn on them. In particular, the locations of freaky MAS-EBS towers were all outlined in red. I sure didn't look like Red-Eye thought in small terms. Your report? The lime green mare asked us as her eyes went from one of us to the other. They went really round as little Macintosh came out. She opened her mouth to yell, but Little Pip's magic glow forced her mouth shut. I leapt on the other and got her into a headlock, effectively wrestling her to the ground. My fingers popped open, and I held her mouth shut as well. Now, what do we do with them? She asked in a small frown, as she looked at the pony with earphones on, sitting, obviously, at the radio with his back to us. Got any wonder glue? I asked with a small smile. She smiled back. The two mares found their hooves glued together and their lips duct-taped shut, just glaring at me as Little Pip talked to the radio operator with the pistol pointed to his head. I really hoped his loyalty to the cause didn't make him realize a gunshot would get us killed pretty quick. A few minutes later, he got to join the glue party as Little Pip put on the headphones. Keep an eye out, she said as she closed the big canvas flap between the rooms and started talking in a low voice. I took the three incapacitated ponies into the corner. Okay, so, waiting in the middle of an enemy camp. Smart thing to do would be to wait attentively for some pony to approach and intercept them with a story or plan to lay them outside the reports room. But I had to admit that these were some awfully pretty maps. It looked like... I looked at one marked Hoofington. There was the core, the little districts surrounding it, the Collegiate, Rainbow Dash Skyport, Megamart, Elysium, Arena, Ironman Naval Base, Grimhoof Army Base, way off to the southeast. That was new. Luna Space Center was next to it. Scrapyard. All four broadcast towers. Hippocampic Research. There wasn't anything printed on the map, but there was a bright red circle exactly where my Pip-Buck said it would be. I reared up on hind legs, marveling at how they kept it upright, like some kind of freaky zebra. They let me get a good look at the map. The top of it, that is. A green line had been drawn from the circle under the core out to the rail lines that led straight to Philadelphia. In contrast, Paradise was simply a yellow sticker. Why the hell would Red Eye be working with Sanguine? I glanced at the leg containing my pip-buck. Brass had said that some pony was holding Sanguine's hooves to the fire. Some pony like Red Eye? Oh, my mane was inventing all new creepy sensations now. I thought of Red Eye getting his hooves on EC-1101. If he was a cyber pony, then the odds he could get it to work for him with those nasty ends. I'd been so fixated on the projects. Maybe the real threat was something very here and very now. "Excuse me," a voice said from the door. A pair of runners stared at me and then at the 3 prone ponies. I extended my fingers and slowly pulled my glasses from my face. I stared long and hard down at the 2 bucks and said, as low and cold as I could manage, "Yes." One stammered as he stared up at me. Slowly I walked, in step after step, on my hind legs towards the pair. "Are you going to trouble me too?" I growled as I looked at the 2 bucks, bigger, stronger, and more heavily armed than I. One reached into his saddlebags and handed over a folded stack of papers. I took them in my freaky metallic fingers. "Thank you," I said in as deep a tone as I could manage. I was somewhat shocked to feel, well, anything. Somehow the legs conveyed tactical sensation. Nodding, they staggered back and trot for the exit as quickly as they could, without running. "Was that thing drunk?" one asked the other. I rushed to the flap and made a hurry-up gesture with my hoof. She waved me away and then said, "Give it to me, and you get what you want. And I get what I want." Then she added, "Of course, you don't trust me. And I've seen her. You've seen her? Can you think of another way?" "Excuse me," a female voice said behind me. I slowly turned, as dramatically as I could. Then I saw the red feathers, the tawny flanks, the wide eyes of a griffin I'd seen a few days back. A griffin who I'd glued to the side of a boxcar outside the scrapyard. We stared at each other for a moment. "You!" Scarlet shouted, pointing a claw at me. "I suppose you'd remember a mare that cemented you to the wall." "Alarm!" she screamed at the top of her lungs. Well, time for Plan D. I raced and tackled her, and we went flying into the canvas wall behind her so hard that it split. We were rolling, screaming, clawing, and squawking as she scratched at my limbs and pummeled and kicked me like mad. The chaos was spreading by the second as we snapped one of the poles holding the section of the tent. There was more shouting and scuffling, but thankfully no gunshots yet. Then we were rolled out in front of the tent, and I finally had Scarlet in a headlock. Okay. No alarms from... Slowly I looked up at dozens of very well-armed ponies and griffins surrounding the pair of us. Wow. That was a lot of guns. "Hold!" boomed a voice that made every pony, including me, jump to their hooves. Oh, wow. I'd thought having seen Lacuna, that I understood just what an alicorn was like. Big, wings, horn, pretty standard stuff. Really? Right? Wrong. 15 alicorns, purple, blue, and green, hovered around us like a judgment host. They were surrounded in shimmering shields and looked fit to blast me to chunks. Only one thing saved me. The leader of the host pointed her blue hoof at me and boomed in shock. "You! What are you doing here? You should not be here. The goddess demands to know what you are doing here." I pulled off what shreds remained of my disguise and tossed them away. Then I pulled out one of the last bottles of Wild Pegasus and tugged it free, holding it in my fingers. If I was going to have to deal with a goddess yelling, I needed more alcohol. The alicorns were so stunned that I was able to take a good long pull of the bottle. Well, I had to get fixed up. New legs, eyes. That's sort of